You never know.
I hate those tests.
3. I do too. I've only had one. 3, 2, 1. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata. We are back. Mike hosted the solo show post game. Man, I'm really bummed I missed the breakdown of the Tennessee Titans and Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, that was a bummer. But you went back. You watched the tape.
Oh yeah.
How you feeling?
Not great.
Mm-mm.
No, well, the post game of me, it felt like just the ramblings of an angry and sad
Yeah.
fan for the most part. Although I tried to keep stats and context of why. I feel like I've mentioned success rate about 3 million times, just because I didn't understand a lot of things, but it's fine. It was not. Sometimes you get the saying, and it's mostly true, of it's never as bad or as good as you remember. And this was about as bad as I remember when I turned it back on. I was like, that offense looks helpless. There, at least the passing offense, just there's more pressure than I remember. Like I remember there being some pressure situations, but the offensive line was worse than I remembered when I went back and watched. I thought, oh wow. And it's not Joe Burrow avoiding rushes; it's him getting the ball out and getting crushed because he can't currently avoid the rush. Uh, it feels like for the first time we are at a point of we are 4 weeks in. Joe Burrow's calf is probably currently worse than it was 2 weeks ago because he re-aggravated it. Where do you go? Because I think the offense as constructed is built for a quarterback that is going to play at an extremely high level. So how do you manage a functioning offense when the quarterback is currently one of the worst in the league in terms of accuracy, in terms of efficiency, etc.? I don't think it's as simple as Zach Taylor's got to draw up some brand new schemes to get wide receivers wide open, because part of the issue is the quarterback can't hit it. Right now, they don't have guys that really gain 10 yards of separation. Like, I think that's another part of this, is that they like ball winners. They like guys that can go up and win it that way. They like guys that can run after the catch. Chase and Boyd and Higgins all, I think, are underrated at getting leverage and winning their routes that way. They're not bad route runners. They're good route runners, but they're not guys that make a corner fall over type of situation. I guess Chase did it to Christian Fulton once in that game, but uh, typically they're guys that are winning in different ways than Tyreek Hill. Just moves different. When you're looking at him with 10 yards of separation, it's because A, they respect his speed too much, and then B, it's because he moves like an RC car. I've never seen somebody be able to run at like 23 miles per hour, come to a complete stop in 2 steps, and be in another break at 18 miles per hour within 2 more steps. It's insane. Nobody moves like that in the NFL besides him. It's not just the speed; it's being able to get in and out of his breaks and stop and start. Like I said, RC car. That's what he reminds me of whenever I watch him on film. It's just like an RC car because they can just zoom, brake, turn, and just kind of crazy movement ability. So where do they go? Where do they go from here? That's I guess where I think they're at an impasse of what they want to be, what they practice all off season to be, what they implemented over the off season to be, with training camp, everything else. They've wanted to be this team that is strictly shotgun, and the quarterback is going to lead them to victory. And it is basically, in my mind, a modern version of like the 2013 Broncos. And I don't think Joe Burrow is as good as Peyton Manning, despite how good I think Joe Burrow is. That's just, one of probably the second greatest quarterback I've ever seen with my eyes. So the second, maybe third, I don't know. That's a high bar. That's not taking anything away from Burrow. I think Burrow is still top 3 quarterback in the league, somewhere in that range. I'm not going to get in. I'm not ranking quarterbacks.
Not right now.
No, and never. Personal philosophy. I just don't think anything good comes of that.
No.
But he's really good. I think he's awesome. So that's why they're able to run this offense. But now he can't do it. So it's what I keep thinking of it as is kind of like the 2015 Broncos offense, where they got so ready for an offense that was going to be Peyton Manning, is going to do what he does, just like he did the past couple of years, 3 years or so. I think he started there in 2012. Yeah, because that's Andrew Luck's rookie year. So he got there in 2012, 2013, 2014. He was awesome all those years. 2015, he shot. Whatever reason, plantar, his foot, I don't know, maybe the neck, the back, all of the above. Everything was just shot, and they had to adapt on the fly. Big difference, and this is why I keep only mentioning the offense, is that was one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen. They went on to win a Super Bowl on the back of that defense. But that's kind of what it feels like. There's more hope that next year it'll be better because you'll be like, oh, the quarterback can get healthy from this. Peyton Manning wasn't getting healthy from that. Like that was it. That was the cliff, and he hung on. But where you are for the current season just feels a lot like that. And there's hope that he can get better this season. But what do you do in the meantime?
That's my biggest question, because I feel like we talk about it every single week. And honestly, even in the Monday Night Football game, the offense, of course, Jamar Chase looked good, but other than that, still didn't give me a lot of confidence in what the offense looked like. They did enough to manage drives, to keep the defense on the sideline for a little bit. But overall, the offense is really bad right now. Bad.
Do you know how many first downs that the Bengals picked up in the second quarter?
0?
Oh, no, it's better than that. 2.
I mean, at
they
this
picked
point,
up 2 first downs.
That's optimistic.
The Titans scored 3 touchdowns in that quarter. The Bengals picked up 2 first downs.
So I want to stay with the offense right now because there is still criticism on the defensive side. Obviously, when you have 12 missed tackles and they normally have around 4 to maybe max 5 in a game, that is going to be really a bad day for your defense too. But with the offense right now, we talked about it on last week's podcast, and I feel like we have since the beginning when it comes to managing Joe Burrow, is running the football. And I truly feel like, and this is nothing against Joe Mixon because he's their best offensive player right now. And I think that's very easy to say just with the way he's performing. I feel like they wish they would have invested a little more into that RB2 position because it's pretty easy to figure out, I think, if you're the defense. You're daring the Cincinnati Bengals to run the football. And
right.
they can't convert. So then they're off the field. Then they're playing from behind. Then they have to throw the ball because they're playing from behind and they can't run the ball anymore. What do you do for the Cincinnati Bengals? And not for once, I agree with you because I think you made some amazing points on social media today. But the biggest point that you've made, and no, that sounds so silly. I want to take kind of that criticism back because that sounded negative. It is a positive. It is a positive one about the say about you. You're awesome. You're the best film guy just to follow on Bengals social media. You said something to me a couple weeks ago on the pod, and I said, get the ball, you go out there, you get aggressive, you score a touchdown. And you brought up the point, like, that's a bad idea if you win the toss to receive the ball. And now I understand it right now in this state of the Cincinnati Bengals. I just don't think that they're aggressive enough to win the toss and go down and score because then you're playing from behind mostly in the second half and you don't get the ball back and the teams can manage the rest of the game.
It was the biggest example of why I hate that too, because the Titans got the ball, went down the field, scored with no time left. They scored a touchdown, and then they got the ball after halftime and scored again. And it's like, that's a 10-point swing. Whereas say they still get that ball and they score that final touchdown and you're down 21-3 and that sucks, but 24-3 is worse. And there was a possibility that could have gone 28-3. And that is, well, I guess the Patriots came back from that in a Super Bowl once, but otherwise it's typically a death sentence. It's not the reason they're losing or anything like that. It's just one of the many things that kind of frustrate me in terms of there's the narrative focus of it and let's play with a lead thing, which I understand, but currently they're not going to play with a lead when they do this because at best they're going to get a field goal, and that doesn't feel like much of a lead. They have 3 touchdowns on the year. So basically what they're doing is getting the ball first and then I think that field goal might have been their first points on the first drive so far this year, but or did they maybe did that in the Rams game? I can't remember exactly, but either way, they get the ball first, they end up not scoring a touchdown, and then they give up a long drive on the other end and give up at least the same amount of points going back. That's how it feels to me. And then you're in that same situation, but you're not playing from a lead. And even if you score a touchdown that first drive, it still doesn't feel like a lead, like you're like the quote unquote playing with a lead. Like that to me is in the second half. That's when it's like the opposing offense is, okay, we can't run the ball anymore because time's an issue. If you took a 7-0 lead on the Titans, they would just run their offense. Like Trey Hendrickson and those guys aren't going to pin their ears back because 5 minutes into the game they're up 7-0. The Titans probably just go down, score, and then you're tied. And then can the Bengals score again? I don't know. But yeah, right now the offense is so bad that it's even worse. It's just like, at least before they would go down, score a touchdown, and maybe the idea of starting hot and whatever that actually applies to them. But really, they're not the only ones to ever do it, but they're like the only team that consistently asks to receive the ball rather than to defer and kick in the first half and get the ball in the second half. It's not much. It's probably like if you looked at all the teams that ever choose to kick versus receive, they're probably like something under 5% difference in win percentage. But it's something small, and I think it does factor in where it feels like this team needs all the advantage they can get right now. So if you win the toss, it's statistically better to defer until the second half because of that middle time. If they could be the Titans there, say they were the ones down 14-0 or 14-3 or whatever, and they get the ball right before halftime and they drove down for a touchdown and it's 14-10, 14-7, and then they get the ball right after half, you're feeling so good. You're feeling like, okay, awesome. Like this is, like we're back in this. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you're on the opposite end, it feels like, oh my God, this defense has to get a stop for us to even get back in this game.
Yeah, so this is where we're at with this offense. And we will get to in just a moment of the comparisons to last year because it's a whole different situation. I do not have any confidence in the world right now. And that sounds so negative. I just don't. There's not a whole lot of confidence that I can pull from a quarter of the season right now after 4 games. And I'm not even down bad on the defense, as I know a lot of people are. The offense is so concerning for me right now because everybody can look back and say, should Joe sit the first 5 games like Jamar Chase said? They didn't. They felt like he was healthy. And honestly, I've said it before, the second half versus the Ravens, it felt like a dose of Joe Burrow was back before he re-aggravated his calf again. Now it feels like we're starting over on that timeline. Of course, the early bye will be helpful, but you have 2 teams right now who I wouldn't be surprised if they lost both of the games to the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks, but you do have to step back and you have to take it one game at a time. With this offense, I know a lot of people are calling for Zach Taylor. Look, to be completely honest, if you go around the league right now and if any offense is struggling or any team loses, they're all calling for their offensive coordinator. We hear it because we watch the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor's the head coach. He's also the play caller. There's that comparison. And they've had slow starts every single year under Zach Taylor. I just don't have the confidence that they're going to be able to kind of change things up that they did from last year when it was around week 5. Joe Burrow isn't Joe Burrow right now. They can't get that mobile Joe Burrow move around out of the pocket. He's a statue. So my confidence level is I don't know how much you can change with this offense going into week 5. And I don't know if it's going to look that much different.
Yeah, okay. So we can get into the changes in a moment, but I just wanted to, because I'm writing an article about what I think could be a positive change for this. But while doing research for that article, yes, they started 2-3 last year. They started 3-2 the year before. But do you know what their biggest loss was in either one of those years? To start off, not including the Browns Halloween, because I'm just talking the first 5 games for each one.
Yeah.
3 points. 3 points. That's the most they ever lost by during that stretch. They've been blown out by 3 scores in 2 of these 3 losses so far this year, including last week against the Titans. They had over 350 yards of offense in 5 out of those 10 games. They haven't had over 350 yards of offense in any of the games so far this year. They didn't score below 17 points in any of those games. Once again, they scored over 17 points in 2 games so far. They have 2 games under 17 points because they've only scored 3 against the Browns, 3 against the Titans. It just doesn't feel the same. And the biggest one for me for this year versus last year, which you might be thinking like, it could be the same record after next week. They were at a positive point differential despite being 2-3. Like, they lost 2 games by 3, but they beat the Jets pretty good and they beat the Dolphins pretty good. So they were in the positive there. That signifies that there's something good here. You know, like, this is still underneath it all a good team. And yes, there's like the whole, like, you only get the wins are the only thing that matters to make the playoffs and whatever else. But this is just an underlying, like, similar to like sacks and pressures where like this guy's not getting sacks, so he's getting a ton of pressures. So like he's going to get sacks. This is like the offense doesn't have a lot of wins, but the point differential is good. So I think this team's going to end up winning some games. And yes, they had to make changes to get there. Currently, they're at a negative 45 point differential, which is one of the worst in the league, if not the worst. I didn't check,
the worst.
But I don't. It's probably not. No, there's got to be an 0-4 team that's worse. Oh wait, no, it's got to be the Broncos. They went negative 50 against the Dolphins.
That's true. That's true. Thank goodness for the
definitely not the worst.
Broncos
right now. Broncos.
And the Giants.
Yeah, negative 45. Negative. Yeah, that too. Negative 45 is terrible. You know, like that's bad, very bad. And that's kind of what the team feels like. Like, yeah, they won the one game. Outside of that Rams game, this team feels bad. Pretty much just feels bad. I mean, I guess they were competitive in that Ravens game, but once, you know, it was towards the end, and that's why there was hope, but he re-aggravates his calf right before the end of that game. If that doesn't happen, there'd be so much more hope heading into these weeks for me, whereas the calf just feels worse than it was week 1 and week 2. So, yeah, we can get into how
how does it get better? How can you change it if you're Zach Taylor? You start off fresh. Tomorrow is really when they game plan. They get back to work. We get back to practice. We'll get kind of a status update on T. Higgins and how they're going into this game. But how can this offense change in a positive way on the road? And I would say a must-win game if you want to save your season.
Yeah, I think they have to go 2-0 really to save the season. Mm-hmm. Although I think they could go 1-1 and squeak into something. You know, like 2-4 is not a good spot to be in, especially with 2 tough games coming up. But just because of last year, I'm not going to count them out from just looking at the schedule.
Yeah, and I just said not to compare it to last year, but this is one of those teams where I agree with you. I think you go 1-1 in these games, you get the bye, and maybe that extra week gets a little bit extra healthy for Joe Burrow, and to be determined what they look like after that. But then they have the Niners, they have the Bills, and they're one of those teams that I wouldn't be surprised because they do this to me every year. They are tougher against that competition that is the highest in the NFL right now, and they just surprise you in some crazy way. But right now, my confidence is pretty low, so you're going to tell me how this offense can change.
Okay, so while the pass offense is terrible, I mean, Joe Burrow in EPA per play is 34th in the league. There's 32 starting quarterbacks, and in success rate, pretty similarly terrible. I had it pulled up somewhere, but let's see if I can find it. But anyway, like the passing offense is 30th in the league EPA per play, 34th in success rate, and that's bad. Obviously, the running game has not been that bad, at least in an efficiency standpoint, right? Like, they, on the year, using the same statistics, 13th best running attack in EPA per play and 21st in success rate, which 21st, that's obviously like below average, but it was 62% in the Titans game, which is in the top 1%. So, like, that's incredible. And they just didn't stick to it. I just think they keep calling the offense, in my opinion, as if Joe Burrow is healthy. I think, and not completely, because they're not trying to call like anything to roll them out. Any 5-step drops, those are kind of cut out from the playbook. It's all 3-step and quicker, and they know he's going to get the ball out quick. But I mean, from a run-pass ratio, they're kind of calling it as if Burrow's healthy. Like, this is our chance to win, is Burrow throwing the ball 70% of the time. And right now, that's just not how it's going. Like, the teams are still playing the pass pretty heavily. The Titans were not afraid of the run game, and they were worried about the pass game and the weapons and even Joe Burrow's ability. But I also just think teams know Zach Taylor's not going to stick to the run. I mean, the run game has been mid-level efficient, which I think is functional. So they could lean on it a little bit more as long as teams are selling out for the pass. So I feel like they need to kind of stick to it a little bit more. I know they fell behind in the past game, so maybe that's why, but it's the whole year. They have the second lowest amount of rush attempts in the league right now, and they have the second lowest yards. So also shocking one. I mean, I guess not that shocking. Joe Mixon has all but 7 carries in the running back room. The other 3 have combined for 7 touches for 29 yards, I believe. I gotta go check that again real quick because I wrote this one down as well. Yeah, 7 carries, 29 yards. So they just don't trust anybody behind him. We heard all offseason about how, like, Travion Williams is a guy they're going to trust a lot and step into a role. He's losing the pass protection role to a tight end, and they don't even give him the ball. Chris Evans, he's been hurt. I think he's the one guy that they actually might trust a tiny bit because they gave it to him. Well, yeah, he has 2 carries in 2 games, so that's how much they trust him. But they went for 7 yards and 5 yards. Like he is doing 6 yards a carry, I guess. Like he feels like the ball of energy, and he's finally running between the tackles. Chase Brown, that doesn't feel like they trust him at all. Does not feel like he's gotten 1 carry and then just kind of went, nope, you're not it right now, and pulled him. Yeah. So they've never invested. Can't say, well, I guess never, because Samaje Perine was like a waiver claim. They don't really invest in that backup running back position. And I feel like it's finally showing up. Like they just kind of take scratchers, like 5th round pick, 6th round pick, 6th round pick, a waiver claim here, veteran minimum free agent there. But when you look at like the best offenses, to me, like think of the Bills. They invest in not just their starting running back, which they spent a 2nd round pick on, but then they went and got Damian Harris, and they went and got, well, I guess Latavius Murray is kind of one of those vet min types, but they went and got some guys that can actually run the ball and they trust. The Chiefs, yes, Pacheco with the 7th round pick, they did spend that 1st round pick, which hasn't worked out, but now he is supplementing him, and they went and got McKinnon, which isn't a veteran minimum type of deal. Think of the Eagles. They spent a ton of resources at the running back position, from DeAndre Swift to all those other guys. Miles Sanders in the 2nd round. You think of other awesome offenses. The Dolphins, they are getting $3 million per year running backs, which the Bengals don't want to pay, in Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And they went and spent a 3rd round pick on Devon Achane. It's not A-Chain. I wish it was. That's a cooler name. But yeah, you look at that. It's like the teams are investing in the running back position. I feel like the Bengals have gone so deep on the other end of, like what Twitter often thinks about, like running backs don't matter at all. Like you could throw anybody in there. We're seeing that they don't trust that they could throw anybody in there right now. It's just that they don't trust anybody else. So twofold. I think the way that this offense could be functional is if they lean more on the run game. They do what I'm thinking of, what I'm writing about too, as part of this, is they get into the pistol, which is somewhere in between under center and the shotgun, because Burrow doesn't feel comfortable going under center, and I would not make him do that with the calf, because you have to push off a little bit and really get out there for run plays. This will keep the running back closer to him for handoffs. And they have to find a way to get a 2nd running back some trust. They have to trust a 2nd guy to carry the ball a little bit. You look at just this past week, Derrick Henry had 22 carries. Mixon can handle 22 carries, but Tyjae Spears had 8 carries. And that doesn't sound like much, but that's more than the other guys combined for this team on the season. Mm-hmm. They don't trust anybody to touch the ball 8 times. And he went for 40-something yards. So he made good on those 8 carries. But yeah, like that is just, it's shocking to me right now how little they trust a 2nd guy in the running back room, when last year it was basically 50-50 with Perine and Mixon.
We were having a conversation of is Samaje Perine. No, not really, but we were kind of talking about the RB2, RB1 situation. It was out there. I almost think you're like, hey, Denver, Samaje, what's it going to cost us? Let's bring him back, because they don't trust anybody like they trust Samaje Perine at this point. Not outside of Joe Mixon, because Joe Mixon, to his credit, like I said, is playing like the best offensive player right now. And he almost gives me that 2021 vibe of Joe Mixon.
Oh, I think he's playing at that level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like it might not show because they're not running the ball as much. They're not going under center, but what he's doing is awesome. He looks really good. He's the 12th most explosive back in the league.
So what's the problem? They don't trust.
To me, the problem is just they're not running the ball as much as they should. And I think that's just a very basic idea, and some people have been yelling it for weeks, but it really showed itself this past week to me. I feel like they have a higher success rate right now running the ball and EPA per play running the ball than they do throwing the ball. And yet it feels like when one or two run plays go bad, they just kind of abandon it altogether. Like there's multiple pass plays that go bad like per drive. And they just, will stick to that. I don't know. Like I get all of the analytics and everything else that say, passing the ball is more efficient. Currently, right now, it's not. But the way teams are playing the Bengals, they're not respecting the run game at all. So while they're doing that, run it on them. If it takes getting into pistol to really establish and pound the rock, sure, I would do it. I don't think I would go under center just because I don't think Burrow would be comfortable enough to do that. But I feel like that's why I feel like the pistol, which those who don't know, the quarterback line about 4 to 5 yards behind the center rather than 5 to 7 yards, and the running back's right behind him. Because there are issues when it comes to shotgun run game with tells. They like 2 run plays, tight zone and duo, and one of those goes opposite of the back and the other one goes to the same side from shotgun. And if you really want to, you could set your 3 technique away from the back so you stop that tight zone look, and then you have somebody come down and fill on duo if you're really trying to stop their run game, which nobody is. But that might be their worry is like, well, we got these 2 plays, but there's a way teams could really take that away from us. Get into the pistol, and now you could run either one of those wherever you want. Like it's not just going to be left or right. To me, it changes from the defense. You're not being reactive to the defense like you are with the shotgun runs. You can be proactive and dictate to the defense. Like you're lining up in that, we will punish it with this. Meanwhile, in the other one, unless you're going to take the running back and flip him over, which then the defense might just flip the front, you're seeing like, oh, they're in that. We can't run this play right now. The other, when you're in pistol, you say, we can run this play. We'll just run it the other way.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is I don't know why it is complicating for this offense.
Because they're also getting in pistol. Like that's the other part of this. Like this could be a far-fetched idea that if I haven't seen them in pistol, they do like 1 play a game from the pistol. And those plays have been awesome. That's where that fake toss deep throw, the only deep ball they've completed was from the pistol, where they ran that fake toss deep ball to Jamar Chase. And then the first play of the Titans game, they got in pistol, ran a fake run and screen that went for about 7 yards. They haven't even run a ball out of the pistol. Like if maybe they're just getting perfect looks, which I'll take those, because I still think while Burrow's limited and he has all these issues, I think the compounding factor and why he's been so bad statistically is because defenses are still selling out to stop the pass game. They don't care about the run game. So if all it takes to switch that is to put the running back right behind him and to move him up a couple steps, sure. Like this pass game, I think could be fine in those situations. It won't be top of the league, but if that causes the defense to respect the run and you can create a real run pass conflict, awesome. Create some explosive plays, awesome.
Yeah, I don't know why it has to be so complicated. Especially when you're seeing what Joe Mixon's able to do when he touches the ball. If they couldn't get the ball, if they couldn't get a running game going, I'd be like, I get it. You can't get a running game going. You can't get a passing game going.
Like nothing's working.
Nothing's working. But the thing is that is a big question mark is Joe Mixon feels like Joe Mixon from 2 years ago, and feed him the ball while your quarterback isn't healthy right now. I mean, goodness, we don't know the percentage of Joe Burrow, but honestly, it feels like a 50% Joe Burrow out there, and that's being kind. To be completely honest. And I just don't understand why you want to protect your quarterback and you're not protecting your quarterback, and running the ball would probably protect Joe Burrow a little bit better. Even if you're just throwing short passes to Joe Mixon at this point, he's getting separation, and just watching him out there, it's at least getting your offense moving, because the first offensive series that they did have, which I think I would have gone for it on 4th down. They didn't. I know it's easy to look back on it. I think you need to be aggressive.
Because they haven't scored any. They've barely scored touchdowns all year. Like this is
you had the ball moving.
Close. Yeah.
They were moving the ball just fine down.
And the Titans don't feel like a team. Well, maybe they would have, because the Bengals defense has been bad. They don't feel like a team that would have driven it down 98 yards for a touchdown.
No, I would have felt really, really confident just at least attempting that there at the very beginning of the game. You're running it, and at least, goodness, it's easy to look back on that game, but I want to flip to the defensive side right now because, like you mentioned, you are going to have a piece up on All Bengals talking everything offense. So I think fans are definitely going to want to check that out before you get to the Week 5 Cards and Bengals game. There's a lot of problems offensively, and I think it's more than Joe Burrow's calf right now, and that's really unfortunate. And hopefully we can kind of talk about a bounce back game with this offense when they play the Cardinals, but my confidence level is about 50% right now. So we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. There's criticism there. As I mentioned before, they had 12 missed tackles. Lou pretty much went off on it and said there's normally 4 to 5 max when you play a game. 12 is 12 can't happen. For me personally, I know I shouldn't do this, and I feel like it's an excuse right now because I think a lot of people said, "Oh, see, this is what happens when Dax Hill and Nick Scott are out there, and your secondary Cheeto's coming back, and it's Cam Taylor-Britt, it's everything they want to point out on the defensive side of the ball." And look, they didn't have a good game. But when your offense can't get anything going and you're on the field for what feels like 80% of the time, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to stop an offense. So I'm not too down on the defense. It isn't last year's defense. It isn't the defense that could have saved them in a game against the Tennessee Titans or even in the Ravens game where they didn't have a good game. And I felt like the offense finally got something going in the second half and the defense struggled. It hasn't been the same, and that's really unfortunate. But then you get that a little bit inspiring. I know who they were playing against when it comes to the offensive line against the Rams on Monday Night Football. And I thought, you know what? Maybe the defense is back. Maybe it's back and everyone can calm down a little bit. How are you feeling about the defense right now?
Pretty concerned. I do think you can put a bit of how poorly they played on just them not getting any breaks. Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned, that second quarter, because the first quarter, the defense was fine. And then they gave up 21 points in the second quarter. They only were able to get 2 first downs on offense in that second quarter. So it was basically defense, man, we got our butts kicked on like an 8-minute drive or a 6-minute drive or a 5-minute drive, go to the sideline, grab a little paper cup of Gatorade, and then the offense is punting the ball and you go, oh, crap, I gotta get my helmet. And then same thing is like, man, we got our butts kicked. Like, let's pull together. Let's figure out what's going on. By the time they all huddle up and the ball is being punted. So I was like, well, we don't have time for that. So we got to get back out there. And I could feel by the end of that, that just feels exhausting to play that long for
90 degrees.
90 degrees. It was a hot game too. But maybe that's why they missed so many tackles. Maybe that's why the front did not take advantage of a bad Titans offensive line. This is the worst Titans offensive line they've faced in the past couple of years. And this was the only time that they got dominated up front. So I think there are issues as well that lead into that happened in the first quarter, but we're just going to look at, I think some of the guys might have been a bit tired already by the second quarter. I have a lot of concern right now for the backup defensive tackles. Mm-hmm. Josh Tupou and Zach Carter through 4 weeks have been pretty bad. I think Tupou has regressed, and Zach Carter has not taken any step forward. He had one play where he had a clean win, and I almost clipped it and sent it out because I felt bad about saying something mean about him because it's like these double teams are sending him 6 yards upfield, and that can't happen because that's making life extremely difficult on your linebackers, who then overran it and big gain running right at Zach Carter, which they did multiple times this game. They went, let's run at 95. But then he has a big win, a dominant win, swims outside of the guard and runs, and on a play action pass, he comes up and hits the running back, and Tannehill throws it as he's up there. It's like, man, find the ball. You almost like turn this game around for yourself, where if you had like some dominant sack like that, completely different conversation. But because he didn't, the narrative for me now is like, what is he adding? Because typically he's not winning on these pass downs. He's not generating a lot of pressure. But if I had to guess his sack total on the year, I'd probably set the over under at like 1.5. Like, does he get a sack? Maybe 2.5.
Miles Murphy's probably going double, triple.
Murphy's already got one. He's already got one sack. Yeah, he's got infinite more sacks than that Carter right now. Yeah, and it was a good sack. I know it was effort, but it was a good sack. I could talk about it a little bit.
But overall, with Zach Carter, this was going to be the year of saying, okay, this is it. This is your opportunity.
It typifies a little bit of what they did, right? Because it's like, well, these guys will step up, and then we just haven't seen that.
No. No, so I agree with you. I mean, there are concerns. It doesn't feel like last year, or even I've mentioned it before in the playoff run in 2021 and even in 2022, where it felt like, man, the defense was dominant. The defense stepped up in these games and it was absolutely huge. And right now, when your offense can't get anything going, your defense isn't saving you at all. And it's just been really unfortunate. And I think we've noticed that in a lot of games this season. I don't put it too much on week one against the Cleveland Browns, because I don't know, maybe I should have looked at the defense there and said, man, it's just a bad defensive unit. For me, it was the Ravens game and it's this game where there's some glaring holes. And I don't know what Lou does in that situation. I don't know what the defense does, but you can't miss 12 people and expect to win a game or even be close in a game. And I know you're on the field the majority of the time because your offense can't get anything going, but at some point you got to stop them. Because as you mentioned before, that third quarter when they had the ball, they pretty much took up the whole entire quarter, the Titans offense. And I know there were some penalties that led to first downs, but overall, you couldn't get off the field. And you're coming out after halftime for that. And it was absolutely brutal. So, yeah, I mean, it isn't good football right now. And I know like I mentioned before, you brought up really good points out there on social media just about this comparison to, hey, they were in this situation last year, or they, even if they win on Sunday, they're 2-3, and it isn't last year. There are some real concerns and problems, and I don't know how to feel going into week 5, to be completely honest. We'll wrap it up right now, just kind of where you're at on concern level, or if there's any kind of optimism where this team is right now. The AFC North is what it is. It looks like the Ravens are going to run away with it. I think they have like a 93% chance of winning the AFC North right now. And the Bengals have a 1.8 maybe, which I don't even think you think about that stuff right now. It's early.
I'll be concerned about that if they lose this week, and then I'll go like, I don't know if this Bengals team's really winning the North.
So look, we had a lot of bad things to say because it's bad football right now. Where are you at overall in this picture as you go into this week 5?
I'm pretty concerned. I think this week's huge because they're the better team on paper, but this Cardinals team's been scrappy all year.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been a really good run offense. And if I have more optimism about one area of the defense, I think it's the pass defense, because it feels like it's a lot of communication stuff, assignments and alignments, just stuff that I think gets cleaned up over the next couple of weeks. We tried to talk about, we're probably going to get some communication errors on the back end, similar to how the offensive line, when you put in those new pieces, have communication issues. Defensive backs communicate just as much as the offensive linemen, just from further away, usually.
Yeah.
So I feel like the pass defense is probably going to be okay, but the run defense, it's all the same guys for the most part, and it's the same coaches. So that's where maybe you turn that, and that's how you turn that into, so that, they'll just turn it around. Like, these have been good run offenses. That's been the issue. But to me, I almost go like, man, it looks like a lot of guys are having their career worst year. Like Mike Hilton looks like he's having his career worst years so far. Logan Wilson had that awesome game against the Rams, and Pratt had a pretty good game against the Browns, besides being driven 25 yards by Wyatt Teller, but neither one of them has been consistent, and they were both bad in this past game. Zach Carter hasn't taken a step. He's been a net negative. Josh Tupou, net negative. I wish that they had one less edge guy and one more interior defensive lineman I like, because I feel like Sample, Murphy, and Osai, I think, those guys can play as much as they want. When it comes to the defensive tackle rotation, I think, man, I don't want those guys really on the field too much. But I don't think, Reader's been playing well. I think he's been the only defender to play consistently well, although I also don't think it's been at the elite level that I was used to last year and the year before, where he would just be utterly dominant. Right now, he's just being really good, which you'll take. But at the same time, I don't think I would go, this guy is without a doubt in the top 2-3 nose tackles in the league. Maybe he has that case, but right now it feels more like, this is a good nose tackle. He's a good player. I think BJ Hill's fine, but I want him to be a little bit better, just because when BJ Hill is on, he's kind of like the disrespectful, I guess. But I do think of him as like the Robin for Reader's Batman. Like when Reader is being a top 2 nose tackle. BJ Hill is like, I'm a really good run defending 3-tech as well.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on all your attention there because I'll dominate this guard. I'll smoke him if you give me the opportunity. And right now it feels like he's more like fine. And he had a really good pass rush, but I'm talking about run defense because that's what I'm really worried about right now. Trey Hendrickson has been, he'll get some splash plays, but he's been not great so far when it comes to defending the run. And then Sam Hubbard, I just can't believe there's been a couple plays where I just went, oh, Sam Hubbard, like not a great rep here. And the main one I think of is the play that I am most frustrated about still after Sunday, where they fumbled the pitch and it went for an explosive play. And Sam Hubbard was, in my opinion, the primary culprit on it because he was the backside contained defender. And he kind of changed his angle when he saw the ball on the ground as if he was going to get it. But man, I'm so much thinking like, just go hit the running back. Just go hit the running back because A, that's legal because you just think, hey, I thought he had the ball.
Yeah.
He fumbled. But also B, like that gives you an opportunity of somebody else picking the ball because he picked it up himself. C, like that is kind of your job on this play. You're too far away to really get that ball unless he bobbles it on the pickup, which happens all the time. I'm not saying this was some abysmal play from Sam Hubbard, but it just kind of showed the entire day for the Bengals where the Titans were able to put the ball on the turf and then pick it up and still go get an explosive play.
Yeah, I felt pretty personal against the Titans. That's for sure. I know the Bengals have had their number for a couple of the games, and that one was just, it was all dominance, and it didn't make me feel good offensively or defensively. And you go back and you clean it up. I do trust Lou Anarumo as one of the best defensive coordinator, if not the best defensive coordinator in the league to fix it. And the players got to step up too. It's really on everybody, and even on the offensive side of the ball. I think you can point to there's somebody in almost every position group that needs to step up right now. And, there are concerns with T. Higgins going to be playing through his fractured, he said, rib to be determined if he plays against the Cardinals. But right now, we'll obviously get a bigger picture when they return to practice. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, they return to practice today. And we'll get what's going to happen the rest of the week. Zach Taylor did say Joe Burrow will be playing in this game. And it's a very big question mark. And it feels like Sunday is a really long way away when you're sitting at 1-3 and the expectations were really high for this team and a calf injury that keeps lingering into the season. But that's all I got right now. I know you have plenty of work over on All Bengals. You're going to have more. I'm already making this. You better have it up, Mike. It's going to be up at some point in the next couple days, maybe a day.
I think it'll be up by people are listening because I actually got a nice start on it. I'm already too many words in with 1,900 and I'm not done yet. So I think I could slap on another 100 and call it a day for the most part. But yeah, it's just going to be, it's not any, like fan venting frustration type of thing. It's more so trying to look under the hood of this Bengals offense, why it sucks right now, and what change they could make to try to help it.
We're in the solution business. We were trying to figure out what's wrong with this team and how they can fix it. So make sure you check out Mike's article. It's going to be on All Bengals. Also follow along Bengals_Sands, really good breakdowns of every game. And you can follow me at LNDS Patterson. Thank you as always for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.